Welcome to this video where I will demonstrate how to connect to the Xena Live demo and show you how the Chimera impairment emulator can be used to impair Ethernet traffic. The Xena Live demo is a fully operational system with traffic generators and impairment modules that is connected to the internet, so you can connect to it at any time to try out the functions illustrated in this video or any other configuration you would like to test. Connecting to the Xena Live demo consists of 5 simple steps which we will be going through in this video. First, install the Valkyrie Manager software on your computer and connect to the Xena Live demo system. Configure the Loki traffic generator and the Chimera impairment modules. Create 2 streams on the traffic generator and start the traffic. Map these streams to Chimera flows using flow filters, and then start the impairment. The first thing you need to do is to download and install the Valkyrie Manager on your computer. Once the download completes, install the software on your computer by double-clicking the MSI file. Once the installation is complete, double-click the Valkyrie Manager icon on your desktop to start Valkyrie Manager. To connect to the Xena Live demo, click Add Chassis and type in the IP address, the chassis port number, and finally the chassis password, which is Xena, X-E-N-A, all lowercase. Now click OK and wait. Once you see the chassis and all the modules, you know you're connected to the system. Before we start the configuration, let me talk about the setup. The Xena Live demo is a Valkyrie chassis with multiple Xena modules installed. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll be using a Loki traffic generator located in port 0 to generate the traffic and the Chimera impairment module located in slot 2 to do the impairments. Both the Chimera and the Loki support 5 speeds. The number of ports depend on the selected speed, as illustrated in this slide. We will configure the system for 25G and 8 ports in this video. Notice that Chimera support 8 streams for each port, so we could in fact configure 64 individual flows, but we'll use only 2 to demonstrate the flow filter. As illustrated in this slide, Loki and Chimera are directly connected, so that everything transmitted on Loki port 0 will pass through Chimera port 0 and be forwarded on to Chimera port 4, where it's transmitted back to Loki port 4, with the Chimera effectively acting as a bump in the wire. To demonstrate the filtering and impairment capabilities of Chimera, I will configure 2 streams on Loki, one with a VLAN ID of 111 and another with a VLAN ID of 222. The 2 streams will be separated inside Chimera by mapping each stream to separate flows. We'll show how to drop packets on the first flow and subsequently how to corrupt the FCS of packets on the second flow. So now, back to our live demo system. Expanding the Chimera module, we can see the 8 ports and the 4 port pairs. We will reserve the port pair containing port 0 and port 4. In the same way, we can expand the Loki module and reserve the corresponding ports. Further, to see statistics, we need to click the Used option for all the reserved ports. The next step is to add a traffic stream to port number 0. I'll right-click and click Add Stream, and then configure the stream properties. We will go with a 10% wire speed and a fixed packet size of 64 bytes. Further, to do filtering in Chimera, we will add a VLAN, adding the VLAN, and then setting the VLAN ID to a value of 111. To create a second stream, we will copy the first stream and then paste a single stream. In this stream, we can then update the VLAN ID to 222 and then enable it. Having my streams in place, I can start the traffic and move to the global statistics. Looking at the ports, I can see that traffic is generated on Loki port 0 and received on Chimera port 0. In the same way, traffic is transmitted from Chimera port 4 and received at Loki port 4. Finally, I can look at my Chimera statistics and see that all traffic is mapped to the default port flow because I've not yet configured any flow filters in Chimera. So let's configure the flow filters in Chimera. The first thing we need to do is to enable the impairments on the port. You do this by selecting the port and going to the impairment config and clicking Enable Impairments. The second thing to do is to expand the port and select the flow. Then go to Filter Config and select the Layer 2 Plus subfilter and select the single VLAN. Finally, you configure the VLAN ID you want to use for filtering. Enable and apply. Notice how the little funnel here indicates that the subfilter is active and that the green icon next to the flow indicates that the flow has now been enabled. Select a second flow, again move to the filter config and configure a single VLAN and a VLAN value of 222. Enable and apply. Now the filters are in place and we can see the effects by going to the global statistics and seeing that now 10% of the traffic is mapped to flow number 1 equivalent to stream number 0, and likewise 10% of the traffic is mapped to flow number 2 equivalent to stream number 1 as configured in Loki. The last thing we need to do is to impair the traffic. To do so, we'll move to flow number 1 and drop 10 packets. This is done by expanding the drop menu and selecting a distribution of fixed burst and configuring a burst size for 10 packets. We can press start, and now we've dropped 10 packets. To verify this, we'll move to Chimera statistics and see that the Chimera did drop 10 packets on flow number 1. To further verify, we can move to the the Loki stream statistics and see that 10 packets were lost on stream number 1. To finally illustrate the FCS corruption, we'll move to flow number 2 and we'll expand the corruption menu. Select the corruption, set the corruption type to Ethernet, select a fixed burst distribution, and finally set a burst size to 15. We'll press start, and now we've corrupted 15 packets. We can verify this by moving the Chimera statistics and expanding the corruption menu and seeing that 15 packets had an FCS checksum corruption for flow number 2. Finally, we can move to the port summary and verify that 15 FCS errors were received on Loki port 4. We've now concluded this demonstration. Thank you for watching.